And in my jealousy, I paid men to kill him, to rid myself of the pain of seeing him succeed where my sons had failed. Children cried out in their sleep, saying they saw Chinedu's ghost watching them through the windows. Something is wrong, the villagers began to murmur. His spirit is not at peace. One night, the village chief awoke to find his hut filled with a cold mist. The shadows on the walls seemed to move on their own, and as he lay frozen in fear, he heard a voice, Chinedu's voice, whispering his name. "Chief, why did you let this happen to me?" The chief's heart pounded as he sat up, his breath quickening. "Chinedu, what do you want from us?" he whispered into the darkness. But there was no answer, only the lingering cold and the feeling of eyes watching him. The next morning, the entire village was in an uproar. People spoke of seeing Chinedu's figure wandering through the streets at night, his face pale and his eyes filled with sorrow. "It's because of Ifunanya," someone said. "The ghost is haunting us because of her." Another villager agreed, "Yes, he must be angry with her. She's the one who caused all this." But Ifunanya, sitting alone in her hut, knew the truth. She hadn't caused any of this. She loved Chinedu more than anything. The idea that she was responsible for his death or his unrest was unbearable. That evening, the elders gathered in the village square, their faces grim. "We must do something," the chief said, his voice shaking. "Chinedu's ghost is angry, and it's putting our entire village in danger." One elder nodded. "We forced Ifunanya to marry his ghost, but it seems that wasn't enough. His spirit is still disturbed." Another elder turned to Ifunanya, who had been brought before them. "Child, do you have any idea why Chinedu's spirit is restless? Did he tell you anything during the ceremony?" Ifunanya shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, I don't know why he's doing this. I never wanted to marry a ghost. I just want him to rest in peace." The villagers began to murmur again, suspicion growing. "Maybe she's hiding something," someone whispered. "Yes, maybe she knows what really happened to Chinedu," another added. Ifunanya's heart sank. "Please, you have to believe me. I don't know why this is happening. I had nothing to do with his death." But the elder's eyes were cold. "Ifunanya, you are his bride now, in life and in death. You must find a way to calm his spirit, or this village will suffer." Tears welled up in Ifunanya's eyes. "How can I do that? I don't even know what's making him so angry." The chief stepped forward, his voice low and serious. "You must find out, Ifunanya. You must speak with his spirit and ask him what he wants. If you fail, we will all be cursed." Ifunanya felt trapped, the weight of the village's fear and suspicion pressing down on her. How was she supposed to find answers when she didn't even know where to start? That night, as the village fell into a restless sleep, Ifunanya lay awake, her mind racing. She knew she had to confront Chinedu's ghost to find out what was causing this unrest. But the thought of facing the spirit of the man she loved, now filled with anger and sorrow, terrified her. "Chinedu," she whispered into the darkness of her heart, "if you can hear me, please tell me what you want. Please tell me how I can help you rest." But there was no answer, only the cold wind howling outside. Suddenly, the walls of her hut began to shake, the wooden beams creaking under some unseen force. Ifunanya gasped, sitting up in her bed, her heart pounding. "Chinedu, is that you?" she called out, her voice trembling. The air grew colder, and a shadow appeared at the entrance of her hut. It was Chinedu, his ghostly figure standing in the doorway, his eyes full of sorrow. "Ifunanya," he whispered, his voice echoing through the small space. Ifunanya's breath caught in her throat. "Chinedu, please, tell me what I can do to help you." But instead of answering, Chinedu's ghostly form flickered, his expression filled with pain. "I'm trapped, Ifunanya. I'm trapped between life and death. Ifunanya's eyes widened in horror. What do you mean? How can I help you? But before Chinedu could answer, his figure vanished into the cold air, leaving Ifunanya alone with her fear and sorrow. The village had made her marry his ghost, thinking it would bring peace. But now, it seemed they had only made things worse. The ghost of Chinedu wasn't at peace, he was angry, and Ifunanya knew that unless she could find a way to calm his spirit, the entire village would be in danger. But how could she help him when she didn't even know the truth about what had happened? The night was far from over, and the answers Ifunanya desperately needed were still out of reach. The nights in the village grew colder, and Chinedu's ghostly visits became more frequent, his presence filling the air with dread. But it wasn't just the ordinary villagers who felt his wrath. The eldest chief, Chief Obinna, began to suffer the most. It started with strange dreams. Chief Obinna would see Chinedu standing at the foot of his bed, his eyes filled with sorrow and accusation. The dreams quickly turned into nightmares, Chinedu's voice echoing in the chief's mind, repeating the same haunting words, "You know what you did. You can't hide the truth." During the day, Chief Obinna could barely focus. He started to hear Chinedu's voice even when he was awake, accusing him, taunting him. His health began to deteriorate rapidly. His hands shook, his face grew pale, and he became a shadow of the powerful man he once was. "Father, what is wrong?" his eldest son asked one morning, worry etched on his face. "You've been ill for weeks now. We must call for the medicine man." But Chief Obinna shook his head. No one can help me now." His son frowned. "What do you mean? We can't just sit by and do nothing." But Chief Obinna couldn't explain the guilt that weighed on him like a mountain. He couldn't tell his son that it wasn't an illness plaguing him, it was the spirit of the man he had wronged. One night, as he lay in bed, unable to sleep, Chinedu's ghost appeared again, this time more solid than ever before. The air in the room grew icy, and the walls seemed to close in. "Obinna," Chinedu's ghost said, his voice cold and unwavering. "You can't escape what you did. You must tell the truth." The chief's heart pounded in his chest. "Chinedu, please. I beg you. Leave me in peace." But Chinedu's ghost only stepped closer, his eyes filled with the weight of betrayal. "I trusted you. I respected you as my elder. But you betrayed me, and now you must pay the price." Chief Obinna felt a tear slip down his cheek. He knew there was no escape. Chinedu's spirit would never rest until the truth was revealed. And the truth was too heavy to bear any longer. The next morning, the village awoke to a strange sight. Chief Obinna, looking more haggard and worn than anyone had ever seen, walked to the village square. He was alone, his steps heavy with the burden of his guilt. The villagers gathered around, whispering in confusion. "What is the chief doing?" they asked each other. Chief Obinna stood in the center of the square, his voice shaking as he began to speak. "People of Umofia, I have come to confess, to tell the truth that has haunted me for so long." The villagers fell silent, their eyes wide with anticipation. Even Ifunanya, who had been called to the square, stood frozen in place, wondering what the chief could possibly have to say. Chief Obinna took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "It was I who ordered the death of Chinedu." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The villagers looked at each other in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. "I did it because I was jealous," Chief Obinna continued, his eyes filled with tears. "Chinedu was a good man, a prosperous man. He was everything my own sons were not. And in my jealousy, I paid men to kill him, to rid myself of the pain of seeing him succeed where my sons had failed." The villagers were stunned into silence, their disbelief turning into horror. How could their leader, the man they had trusted and respected, do something so evil? "I thought I could live with my guilt," Chief Obinna said, his voice cracking. But Chinedu's spirit has tormented me day and night. I thought I could shift the blame onto Ifunanya, force her to marry his ghost so the village would believe she was responsible for his death. But I was wrong. So very wrong. Ifunanya felt her knees buckle beneath her, the weight of the chief's confession crashing down on her. All this time, she had been accused, blamed for something she had no part in. And now, the truth was finally out. Chief Obine fell to his knees, his voice a whisper. I am sorry, Chinedu. I am sorry, Ifunanya. I am sorry to all of you. I deserve whatever fate awaits me. Suddenly, Chief Obine gasped, clutching his chest. His eyes widened in fear as he collapsed onto the ground, his breath leaving him in a final, shuddering sigh. The villagers rushed forward, but it was too late. Chief Obina was gone, his life taken by the weight of his own guilt. As the chief's body was carried away, Ifunanya stood in the square, the full realization of her freedom sinking in. Chinedu's ghost had sought justice, and now that the truth was out, he could finally rest. The wind picked up, swirling around Ifunanya, but this time, it felt different, warmer, lighter. She closed her eyes, feeling the presence of Chinedu one last time. But this time, it was not cold or terrifying. It was peaceful, like a final farewell. Thank you, Ifunanya whispered, her voice soft as the wind carried it away. The village of Umofia had been shaken to its core by the truth, but peace had finally returned. Ifunanya was free from the haunting, and Chinedu's spirit could rest in peace. The sorrow of the past would linger, but the future was now open, a future where Ifunanya could live without fear, knowing that justice had been done. As the sun set on the village, casting long shadows over the land, Ifunanya walked away from the square, her heart heavy but finally at peace. The moral of the story is that the truth will always come to light, no matter how deeply it is buried. Jealousy and envy can lead to destructive actions, but in the end, justice will prevail, and those who do wrong will face the consequences of their deeds. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more captivating tales, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more awesome stories that will touch your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat.